next level.
There's no crying in baseball.
Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
You're killing me, Schmalz.
Candlesticks always make a nice wedding present.
Oh, people take vacations shorter than that. Pick me out a winner, Bobby. Now here is your show and go team.
Yes. We are
back. We are getting back together.
That's a nice pitch.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
Probably not.
Well, I get a mic in front of me. I just feel like I can sing.
Keep going. I liked it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Show and Go. This is a baseball podcast to help and educate the amateur player, as well as coaches and parents, about the game within the game. My name is Tim Dillard, professional pitcher in baseball for the last 16 years. When I say it slower, it sounds more important. Or maybe it doesn't. And to my left is the man, the myth, the legend, and current big leaguer and 2016 World Series MVP, Ben Zobrist. What's up, man?
What? What's up? I got my PF flyers on.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, check them out.
Yep, those are sick.
PFs.
PF flyers.
Almost every day.
Yep, and to Ben's left is an empty chair because Josh Costello is not here. And we're going to wear him out today. God.
What could he possibly have
doing?
to do that's better than this?
Well, he's liking
Right here.
stuff on Instagram right now, so
Yeah.
You can do
we
that
did
here.
see that.
My money's on a date.
You think he's on a date?
I think he's in front of Netflix right now.
What's he watching?
He's watching a romantic comedy.
No.
Seinfeld.
Maybe. Yeah. What's the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger when he's younger? Like Pumped? He like pumps iron? What's the name of that?
I don't know. The only
Never
one I
heard of
know
it?
is Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah, he's out there watching Kindergarten Cop somewhere. And rounding out the Knights of the Mound Table is head baseball coach at Trevecca Nazarene University here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, Ryan Schmalz. Hello, Coach.
Hello.
We are all here and accounted for.
Who are the Pelicans?
Pelicans, my shirt.
Yeah.
This is
All grip, no slip.
It's a bat wax
It's
company.
a bat, like they do pine tar and stuff like that. And
Nice.
anyway,
Is that what you use when you hit?
Yeah.
well, on the pitching staff this year, this past
Wait,
season,
wait.
Where are we going with this?
Here's where it's going. I had the biggest Twitter following, so I reached out to Pelican Bat Wax, and I was like, hey, you guys want to send something to the bullpen? And they were like, yeah. So they sent us a bunch of pine tar stuff. So I let the position players use it.
Yeah.
You obviously do not
Completely
use it.
legal.
I can't use it.
Exactly.
Especially because I lick my fingers all
Unless
the time.
you're Kenny
So,
Rogers.
pine
So
tar
will
in
you
your hands.
will you go ahead and go on? Will you
that?
go on podcast right now saying that you'd never use the pine?
I'd never
pine
use
tar?
it. I'd never use. They sent 4 different kinds of pine tar: liquid, stick, whatever's in like another jar.
Dude, I don't believe you for a second. I don't.
Why?
All pitchers use something.
No.
Oh,
No,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
They may use something. I don't use pine tar.
Okay, we'll let it go that far. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of interesting because
Rub a little jalapeno in your nose.
yeah. Little Vaseline under the arm. No, I don't even know what that stuff does.
What were you using last year when you, or was it 2 years ago when you hit the home run?
What was I using? Sweat and dirt. I was in New Orleans in,
No.
in
You
July.
didn't use any batting gloves?
Oh, I
No.
thought it was in Colorado.
No. Because I was a mile high. That's why the ball
Yeah, I
got
mean,
out. No, I was below sea level. And that ball still got way out. No, I walked up to the plate. I came in like the second inning. And I'm sitting there, and they're like, hey, you're still in the game, and you're going to bat. You're up 4th. I was like, I hope everyone gets out.
You went no batting gloves?
Yeah. Yeah, I went no batting. I didn't have any. My hands are sweaty, dude. It's so, I don't know what under
You
sea
can't
level.
dry
it's-
off down there.
You can't. Yeah, there's not a towel big enough or dry enough. So I was sitting on the bench, and they were like, "Hey, you have to go hit." And I was like, "Ugh." So I grab a helmet. I walk up there. Eric Young Jr.'s on second base, and I was just like, maybe he'll just get picked off. I was like, I'm probably going to strike out. And as I was walking up there, someone's like, "Hey, this is a new pitcher. This is the first time he's ever pitched in AAA. Like, just got called up from AA." And I was like, okay, I could take advantage of this. I walked up there, and first pitch was like away. He's facing a pitcher, probably hasn't done it much. And then I thought, man, he's going to groove the next one. So I was like, I better just barrel it. Let me make sure I get my hands to it. And I barreled it over the left field wall.
Oh, how did that
Yeah.
feel?
It felt amazing.
It has been years, right?
Yeah.
Decades. It had been decades.
It had been almost, it was 9.5 years. So yeah, you never
That's
forget
awesome.
that feeling. It's pretty amazing. Speaking of
awesome.
amazing, I got a treat for you guys. So I got to sit down with the 2012 Cy Young Award winner, R.A. Dickey. Right?
Yeah, thanks for bringing him in studio.
Yeah, so we couldn't get him in the studio, so I met him out there in the real world, and we had a
R.A.'s a stud.
yeah.
He is
Dude,
a
he won a
stud.
Gold Glove. I forgot he won a Gold Glove in 2013.
Really?
For a
I
pitcher.
played against him in 2013
Yeah.
a lot.
Did you ground out to him because he probably made the play?
I'm pretty sure I didn't make a lot of contact, but I'm sure if I did, he probably caught it. Yeah,
So you faced him
a lot,
A lot?
a lot in my career. Yeah, when he was in Toronto for I guess 3 or 4 years there, like we faced them. We faced them 3 times at their place and 3 series at our place. So we had the option of facing him like 6 times in the year, and I'm pretty sure we faced him 6 times every year, just because every time it was his turn, whether he was on 3 days rest or 4 days, it didn't matter. He was going to pitch.
So how do you feel when you go to bed the night before, you see who's starting the next day?
R.A. Dickey.
You see R.A. Dickey.
It's everybody-
What's the mindset?
Head start rolling. That's it. That's a head start. Oh, God. Just show and go, basically.
Yeah. But you're a switch hitter, and he throws right-handed. But didn't you start hitting right-handed against him?
I did. I tried everything. I would have. I literally would have stood in the middle of the plate if they would have allowed that. But I was it was like swatting at a fly. I went up there lefty
Mr.
off of him.
Zobrist, put the tennis racket down. You need a bat.
I'm serious. Like the first few times I faced him, I think I might have gotten a hit. So I was maybe 1 for 4 or 1 for 5, or I got a hit based on the fact that I hit the ball hard and the center fielder misjudged it, and I got a hit on it, I think. But after that, I don't think I had a hit for like 10 games against him. And it was just
That's incredible.
strikeouts. I mean, I walked occasionally. He would walk me occasionally. That was the only thing I could do off of him. And then, but it was just maddening. So I would go up lefty. I thought, you know what? I'm gonna mess him up. He thinks I'm going up lefty because I've always gone up. I'm just gonna go up righty. So I went up righty the next at bat, and the catcher was like, "Oh, hey, you gonna go righty this time?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess."
Save it.
Kind of like it doesn't
Save
matter,
it, catcher.
And then, of course, I make another out, and I think I struck out or something. And I came back the next time, and I went back to the left-handed batter's box, and the catcher's like, "Really?" I was like, "It doesn't matter. Let's be honest. We both know that."
It's unbelievable. I play catch with him in the offseason sometimes, and he's like throwing these knuckleballs. He has a name for every one of them. He's like, "Oh, Dilly, catch the sidewinder, Dilly." And I'm like, I don't know. Which side's it going to? He knows everything.
You could almost whiff catching one of those knuckleballs.
I have. Just ask my lower ribs.
A lot of people out
gosh.
there don't have a clue how to even approach facing a knuckleball. And if I had some advice, I basically don't have any. Like there's not much I can say. But
Wow.
however, RA threw a harder knuckleball than most guys. I faced Tim Wakefield, RA. There was a few other guys that I faced over the course of my career. But he threw it like 80 miles an hour. So that thing, 78, 80 miles. I mean, it was coming in, and just if it was moving, it was going all over the place, and you had to think quickly to decide whether you were going to go for it or not. But there would be some days where it was impossible, and he had one that shot up, and he had one that shot down, and one that shot to the right and to the left. It was like he could control it. And then other days where it's like he was out there and he had no idea, so you knew you were safe if you just took a few pitches, here and there. But he threw me an occasional fastball one time.
Did you get him?
Time I got him.
Oh,
No way.
I got him with the fastball.
got him
and
where? Like single?
Homer.
Homer. Oh.
Home run. Yeah, one time. And I was like,
That's
well,
why you didn't come in
that
the
was
studio.
the one time. That was the one time.
Yeah, I was like, all right, you want to come in and sit down? He's like, oh, sure, who's in there? And I was like, Ben Zobrist. No, never. All right, now I know why. Home run.
He was, that's the thing about him, though. He's the nicest guy ever.
Oh, he was great.
And you'll hear that, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's just.
Yeah.
he's
The
very
interview is spectacular. I had such a great time. And what's funny, when you were talking about his knuckleball dancing, I was on a plane with him one time, and there was like a lot of turbulence. And because of our names, we were alphabetical. We would sit on the plane next to each other. Dillard, Dickey, we'd be right there. And he'd grab my arm every time and go, Dilly, we're coming in like a Dickey knuckleball. And I'm like, stop trying to make me laugh. I'm contemplating what's going to happen next on this plane. So, but he's a rare bird. Yeah. And the interview's spectacular. Should we just go into it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Let's hear it, man.
All right. So I'm Tim Dillard with the Show and Go podcast, and I'm here with a guest, the 12 years Major League veteran, Cy Young Award winning, Gold Glove winning, and your biggest accomplishment obviously would be you were teammates with me in 2007. So I'm here with R.A. Dickey. R.A., what's up, man?
How are you doing?
I'm good. We're at this nice little quaint coffee place. I don't know. You don't see these everywhere.
No, you don't.
Starbucks?
They're not on every corner. This is a little hole in the wall. Nobody knows about it.
Starbucks. Yeah, I like it. So you played for however many years. You didn't play last year. Are you calling that retirement? Or taking a leave of absence for a year?
No. I'm calling it retirement. I haven't formally filed papers with the commissioner's office or anything. I don't think I'll ever do that. I don't think I was ever kind of one that wanted to take a victory lap around, and say, hey, I'm going to retire this year. It's my last year to play. I just kind of wanted to go out like I came in, kind of under the radar, And thankfully I was able to go out kind of on my own terms, and it's been nice.
This game is hard, and it takes a lot out of you. So to leave on your own terms, it's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah, one of the real blessings has been that I got to kind of choose when I got to leave. Not a lot of, like you said, not a lot of people get that opportunity. I'm well aware of that, and don't take that for granted, and have had a lot of people help me along the way. So I'm thankful that I was able to play 21 years professionally, and I never was released, or I was traded twice but never released. And that was cool for me to be able to say that.
Man, that's awesome. I remember I think the last time I saw you while we were playing was at Miller Park. I think you were with the Mets, and I remember one of the first things you said to me is you just bought a life-size Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's one of my first big purchases. Was a life-size Darth Vader costume. I still have it. I wore it just the other day, as a matter of fact.
I was so jealous.
Yeah.
I've totally forgotten about it, though. It's only been 8 years.
Well, those things are expensive, just as an FYI. If you don't get the ones that are Party City, if you get the real ones there, they can run pretty.
Yeah, I know you're a huge Star Wars fan. I think, when we first played together in 2007, I'd already known a little bit about you, but had never come across. My career was young. Yours was kind of, you were 10 years in, maybe 11 years in.
Yeah.
And I may be one of the few people that have ever seen you without your awesome beard.
That's right.
Because you had to shave in the clubhouse and then come out. I was doing the bucket, and you came out and looked like you hadn't shaved much. You had little
scratches and cuts. I can't. Why do we have to do that? That was because that was a minor league rule.
That was a minor league Brewers rule.
Yeah.
They don't have it anymore, though.
You couldn't have a beard, or you couldn't have hair below your lip.
Yeah. You could have a little
mustache
and some sideburns.
Yeah.
You didn't do that. You went full goodbye beard. So
yeah, it was all gone.
But I always bring you up, and it was an impact on me and my career and probably my life. So much wisdom and things that I learned from you over that season. I mean, I don't. Maybe I've never told you that because guys don't usually talk about that stuff. But just watching you and the day in and day out consistency, is that something that you've always been like?
Maybe. I haven't really unpacked that, and I appreciate you saying that. That's a real encouragement. But I think that's some of that might just be innate. It's kind of born into you. I'm awfully stubborn, and stubborn can be good and bad. I think the good part of being stubborn is that you've got a relentless spirit, and that's part of it, is showing up every day and learning how to punch the clock even when you don't feel good, and even when things are stacked against you, and even when you're the 12th man on a 12-man staff. I mean, part of being stubborn is being relentless, and I think that's probably an attribute that has served me well in baseball. I don't know if it's served me very well outside of baseball, but in baseball it was a necessary thing for me to achieve anything, really.
Well, I mean, but would you say you're the same person off the field as you are on the field? I mean, in the clubhouse as you are with your kids?
Well, maybe a dialed down version, right? I mean, it's not that I was out there. I mean, and you know me intimately, so I wasn't out there cussing or holding team meetings and beating people up. But at the same time, I expected people around me to, try as hard as I did. I mean, that was the expectation. And so at home, I think there's some of that goes on. Like I expect my family to, ethically live by a code and a faith and and I try to educate them in that. And so there's some overlap, but I would say that I'm a bit different off the field because there's not the pressure of performance all the time. You
Absolutely.
know, I mean, and you can relate to that completely. But I learned pretty late in my career how to leave bad outings and things that didn't go well at the field. I wasn't very good at that early on in my career, and it hurt. It hurt my marriage, probably. It hurt my relationships, and I had to learn that. And I learned that about the time that I came to the Nashville Sounds in 2005, 2006, around that. And I'd already been playing for 10 years. So, I learned a lot of life lessons along those first 10 years.
But I hadn't learned those lessons when I came across you. I was the roller coaster. I was holding on to every outing, and if you remember that year, you and I were kind of flip-flopping starter, reliever, starter, reliever.
We did.
And
yeah.
I didn't have that great a year. It was going not that great for me. And for you, it was a struggle in the first half. And what always impacted me is that you were the same guy every day. Every day. It was very consistent for me to be able to go, I know who's going to be we were locker mates.
Yeah.
Remember the mold that was growing on the
100%.
old clubhouse? Yeah.
Yeah, Greer Stadium.
But that was that constant for me was leaps and bounds what I needed at that time, because it taught me how to conduct myself when things aren't going my way, or even when things are going my way. Because the second half, you blew up. You were the best pitcher in the league, and I don't even know if you remember or not, but you got PCL Pitcher of the Year that year. I remember that.
No. I remember. I remember that one, man. That's a feather in the cap, the PCL Pitcher of the Year. Forget the Cy Young.
Yeah.
I think the PCL Pitcher of the Year is a harder feat.
Yeah.
Especially when you start the year, like, I think I started like 1-6 with a 7 ERA or something. I mean, it was horrible. And I literally thought, hey man, this might be it.
Yeah.
And so part of wanting to model, you hear a lot of people talk about, how do you make an impact around you when your performance is not, because a lot of people think, you got to be an MVP or Cy Young to have any kind of footprint on the game, and I totally don't believe that. And I had modeled for me early on in my career some players who were older, didn't have very good years, but golly, man, they taught me so much more than like an A-Rod, would have taught me. And it helped me in my later years. And I think part of the reason I was able to turn that year around was because I just had a steady routine, and I was consistent in my thought life and in my process, and that really translated well over the course of time.
That's awesome. Who was somebody in your career that made an impact that I'm talking about you had on me?
Yeah, there was a guy when I first got called up with the Rangers named Jeff Brantley.
Yeah.
Jeff Brantley is now a commentator for the Cincinnati Reds, and he was an SEC guy, came from Tennessee. He came from Mississippi State, so we had a lot in common. He was much older, like I was when you and I were together, to you. And they stuck me right by him. My very first call-up, I was his locker mate. And so on one side, I had Jeff Brantley, and on the other side, I had a guy who was the complete opposite of Jeff Brantley. And I don't want to name names. But one was an absolute jackleg, and the other was a guy who was incredible. And so I had this incredible juxtaposition going on around me about, okay, why would I want to be around this guy, and why do I want to be around this guy? And I got to do like a personal inventory, and it was a great thing to happen for me early in my career, because I had like a jerk on one side and I had a saint on the other, and I got to see, how they both acted when they blew it and when they were doing well. And he was a guy for me that just has remained a lifelong friend and mentor. And when I was in the big leagues, and anytime we would go through Cincinnati, he and I would always talk, and he would call me on the phone, and he would identify a mechanical adjustment I might be making, or ask me about, a thought pattern before a pitch, or just, he kept me in the game, and it was a great asset to me.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much of a family baseball is. Because, I see guys all the time throughout the year, and most of them are scouts.
Yeah.
No, not many of the guys I played with years ago are still playing. And one of the things that I always hear, I never hear guys like, man, I wish I could get back on the mound, or man, I wish I could get up there and swing the bat again, because that pressure's there, that anxiety of playing.
Yeah.
What I hear all the time is, man, I want to get back in that clubhouse. I had so much fun on road trips, blah, blah. What are you missing about this game?
It's that. I think, I've had a year now just to kind of sit in it, and the first 4 or 5 months of my retirement, it was a real struggle for me. I was kind of in this purgatory of, I was still capable of playing. I'd walked away and turned down an option with the Braves, and I felt like it was the right time for my family and friends to do that. But I was still kind of, I would hear something going on, or a friend would call me from spring training, or Freddie Freeman would drop me a text, and I would think, why am I not playing? And I tried to trust the decision that I had stayed faithful to, but it was tough, and I missed the competition for about the first 3.5 months. And then when I kind of surrendered to the fact that it was the right decision and I wasn't going to play at the All-Star break, and, things kind of turned for me. But the thing that will never be the same is you cannot replicate the dynamic of a major league clubhouse outside of the game. You just can't do it. Not in any workplace. It's too raw of an environment, and guys are too intimate. There's no other job probably around, or very few, where you shower together, where you're eating together every meal, where you're traveling together. 25 strong, and it creates a real interesting dynamic.
Well, I think people that get it call it family.
Yeah.
I like to call it family because, the only other people I spend more time with than my teammates is my family. And, I see guys every day for 6 or 7, 8 months at a time if you're in the big leagues. And, you're doing life together. And the game is hard and you rely on each other. But that's what I hear. I hear guys that are always missing the game. And I think that's the reason that I'm holding on to the game so tight, because I don't want to leave.
I get that, man. Hey, we're I think at our root, we're relational beings, right? We're relational beings. We're called to relationship. And it's, when you've done relationship a certain way for so long, and then all of a sudden that's kind of ripped off like a Band-Aid, it's hard to get it back. And so you're looking for all these other kind of venues to be able to put that kind of energy, and a lot of times it's not there, or it's not as convenient. You got to work harder at it. I'd have a bad game, and then I knew the next day I had to be at the clubhouse at 2:00 ready to go again, and all my family were going to be there, right? Yep. And some of them would be real jerks, and some of them would pick me up, and that's the dysfunction of a real family, and that's what you live with. But you can't, like I said, I think you're right on. I think that's the thing I probably miss the most, is just the everyday interactions, the relationships, and laughing. I think like the humor, humor in baseball is just, it's otherworldly. From the nicknames to the personalities to, you can't fabricate the stuff that happens in that place.
I think one day I'm going to write a book. I don't know. I think it's going to be called Fly on the Wall. That's what I feel like with my career.
Yeah.
Things have happened. I'm kind of just a fly. But with your career, you're at Tennessee, right?
Right.
Did you only play baseball?
I did. I played baseball from 93 to 96, 1993 to 96.
Yeah. You got drafted twice. Got drafted in the first round.
I got drafted in the 10th round out of high school, and then the first round out of UT.
Okay. And then major leagues, you've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, you've pitched in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
What am I missing? I feel like there's a lot of stuff. Olympics, that's right. Twice.
Well, the 96 games, but I was on the developmental team for a couple of years in college. But that was a real treat in 96 when we played in Atlanta. That was cool.
Well, I tell guys, because I'm usually sitting in a bullpen in AAA, and I get the young guys, and I feel like the only reason I have a job at times is to be that mentor role and to grind it out and to take the ball whenever it's needed and to kind of teach these guys the ropes. And one of the things I share with them is it doesn't matter if you make it to the big leagues or not. It doesn't matter if you play 10 days in AAA or if you play 15 years in AAA. You have a unique story that's special to you, and you can't discount. Someone's story is not more special than yours, and that's what's amazing about this game. But I say that a lot, but now I don't know, man. Looking at your career, I'm like, that's awesome. You have the most unique story. You have a book, right? So
yeah.
Your story's
I wrote a book in 11 called Wherever I Wind Up, and it's just what you said. Like, we all have a story, and I'm a big believer in that. And my story's not any better because of any personal achievement. It's just my story. And look, I had a lot of help along the way. I'm not a self-made man by any stretch of the imagination, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've all had help. And that book that I wrote, and my journey in particular, is about how I received help in a way that really helped transform me as a person and a player. And that's what I hope to do for other people. And that's always what I had hoped to do kind of post 05, 06, when I kind of came to the end of myself as a minor league journeyman and a guy who was just frustrated with the same old stuff that I was dealing with personally. And I got help, and it paid off.
So moving forward, could you pitch in spring training if you had to?
Yeah, no, I physically I feel great.
Oh, yeah. I know. I've seen your jump shot, and I know you play basketball and throw a football 60 yards. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that you're an Iron Man.
Well, that's
I know
okay.
that.
Yeah, that's part of being stubborn. I always think that there's something else I could do, and it's going to probably get me hurt as I get older. But so far it's paid off, to have that mentality. I mean, 44 is not.
That's nothing.
I mean, Phil Necro threw his last complete game shutout when he was 47.
Yeah.
And I think Tim Wakefield retired at 45. Charlie Huff retired at 46. So there's still some room in there if I got a wild hair to go back. But I just, I'm having too fun being a dad. And that's one thing that people don't understand, I think, outside the framework of baseball is that we spend, at the minimum, we're gone about 220 days of the year from our home if you include spring training.
Yeah.
And, 162 games in 183 days, and that's a lot of sacrifice on a lot of people.
Yep.
And my kids, I've got 4 ages 16 and under, and so it's time for me to be a full-time dad. They deserve that. And I've drugged them all over creation, and I know what you know what that's like, going to winter ball and everywhere in between, trying to scratch it out, But it in the long run, it pays off because you learn so much about what this life has to offer and what's important about this life and what's not. And it just gives you a great outlook, I think, if you take it like that.
Would you consider some sort of special assistant role?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would have to do with the people that are in leadership.
Yeah.
Because at this point in my career, I want to be around people that are like-minded, and thankfully I have the option to be able to say yes or no to things, and that would be more about what it's about. So if it's, the Cogwez Eagles in Puerto Rico, or it's the, whoever, LA Dodgers, it doesn't matter. I want to be around good people who get it, and that's more important to me than anything. But I could see myself in a role like that, where I go out and consult on some players and help the growth of some younger players. I think that's one of the things that's so prevalent in our game now is there's so much youth that's at the highest level now. There's not a lot of development that's going on anymore. If you're good, or if they think that you're good, you're going to get an early opportunity. When you and I were coming up, and I know Doug Melvin, who was the general manager for the Brewers, he was my general manager when I got drafted for the Rangers, and he had a rule that you had to throw at least 300 minor league innings before you ever got called up.
That's the reason it took me so long.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought it was because I was bad.
Yeah, well, he had that rule, and he had the same thing for at-bats, and you don't see that development anymore. And so you have these guys with that are really young at heart, and young in mind and spirit. And so ego is a big deal. It's an overlooked thing that doesn't get talked about a lot, but the quicker an ego can find the balance of thinking that they're the best player on earth but still behaving like they're the worst player on earth, I mean, that dynamic is where it's at.
Where do you go from here? What do you do on a daily basis? You're with your family? Do you make lunches in the morning? And
I mean, I play basketball 3 mornings a week still, and I go at 6 to 7, and then get home in time to do some things around the house. I have a 40-acre farm, so that keeps me really, really busy. A lot of manual labor, which I enjoy.
Horses?
Horses and
sheep?
No sheep. The only livestock we really have are I have a donkey. So we have 3 horses and a donkey and a dog, some rabbits. We have rabbits and cats.
What's your donkey's name?
Rocky Top. Rocky Top. And my son rides around on him like he's his personal valet. It's hilarious. I've got a 7-year-old that rides that thing like he's a scooter.
I'm just fascinated because, I know a lot of guys. I know a lot of former big leaguers. I don't get to, know them this intimately and live in the same vicinity and stuff. I'm just curious. Like, you don't have to do anything, right? Like, you don't have to go get another job. So I just want to know, when you have the chance to literally do anything you want, what do you do? Do you have something planned?
I kind of go back to some of the things I learned in baseball. Like, I like to travel and I like adventure. So I have I have a bucket list of things that I'd like to accomplish, whether, like, I've got a trip planned to Everest Camp 1 this upcoming spring and early summer. And so like things like that are out there. But I tell you what, the thing that I really want to do well is I just want to be in the present. I want to be in the present for my kids. I think that's a real kind of life goal for me, is how do I live the next 5 minutes well? How do I do that with whoever I'm with? And if I micromanage that goal down to those kind of things, then I find that at the end of the day, I've lived a real rich day, and so that's kind of where I'm at, is how do I do that? And I'll fail at that all the time. But, my wife loves to travel. I love to travel. We'll probably do some of that. I play a little golf. I love to still exercise. But that farm keeps me really busy. I love being able to do things with my hands and look back and see what I've done, whether it's build a fence or, dig something out with the tractor or, rake a horse arena or whatever it is. I like that.
That's awesome. And you have like the strongest hands in the world, right?
Well, my right one is, because I've had to hold on to that knuckleball forever.
And the knuckleball's not easy. I remember you had a tackle box in the clubhouse. It's the first time I'd ever seen a pitcher with a tackle box. And you didn't have fish hooks in there. You had all the stuff to take care of your fingernails and your cuticles. And
oh, yeah, man. I learned a lot of tricks from like Phil Necro, Charlie Huff, man. They showed me how to take care of because that's like no other baseball player out there. If they break a nail, is it going to bother them? But if I break a nail, I'm in big trouble.
I remember you did that one time. You went and had a fake one put on or something
I had
like that.
acrylic. I had to have acrylic.
Nail.
It was horrible.
Man.
I had to have acrylic nail put on, and the feel of the ball's not the same, and it was horrible.
We didn't even get to talk about you swimming across the Missouri River?
Oh, the Missouri in Omaha.
Yeah. That's incredible.
We'll have to do a podcast 2.0.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Dickey, thanks for being on the show, man. I know all the guys wish they could be here, but they're not. So those guys can wear it. Thanks for being on the Show and Go podcast. My good friend and teammate R.A. Dickey. Yeah, so that's a pretty fun interview. I don't really like how I sound recording off of a recording, but anyway.
I like that horn in the background of the car drive.
The sirens?
Yeah.
I was trying to say something profound, and like an ambulance drove by, and I was like, the selfish ambulance. I'm just kidding.
He's such a great dude, though, isn't he? I mean,
yeah.
That's one of the first things that jumped out to me is just the humility, the wisdom, the perspective, just in general. I mean, there's a ton of wisdom and tidbits in there, but just what a great human being.
He's a genuine guy, very authentic. It's very inspiring. When you get around somebody like that, and it's very attractive. It's just that love that's there, that grace that's there, and he's an infectious human, man. Yeah. I left walking away that interview, and I was like, I feel great. Better than the ambulance driving by.
Yeah. One of the things that really stood out to me, and Tim, I think you alluded to this earlier, was just the consistency. And one of the things he pointed to was he said that he was able to create a routine for himself.
Yeah.
Even though he may not pitch a great game every day, and his performance may not be consistent, but he felt like his routine was consistent. Can you guys relate with that at all?
Absolutely. I mean, he had 10 years in, and he was still trying to figure it out. And as the year went on, he got that routine down. And, maybe it didn't pay off right away, but he knew it was his plan, and he stuck with it.
Yeah, he said that took him a while, right?
Yeah, it did.
It wasn't something that he had when he was in high school, college, early years of pro ball. And his... the peak of his career was really late, and I think that really stands out with something that he figured out and really pointed to as a big part of his success was just the consistent routine, getting himself ready to play every day, being the same person every single day. And, if you're a young baseball player out there, the earlier that you can identify that, the better. Write it down, and talk to somebody about it. Create, think about the best way that you can get yourself ready to play. And there's a lot of room for adjustment in there too, but a lot of people don't even think about it, completely unaware of what they're even doing and if it's different one day to the next or not.
Yeah, it really stuck out to me, him talking about even just saying he had a consistent thought life. I think he said at one point.
Yeah, that was a great phrase.
Yeah. That is so hard to do when you're playing the game, especially when you're struggling, like he talked about struggling at the beginning of that year in the PCL, and then eventually doing better. And even when you're doing well, that's a struggle because you start thinking, you're way up here, and it's just really difficult to stay consistent in your thoughts every day. And I really appreciated the humility and how he said that it took him a long time to get there in his career, as well. You know, that he, you know, really didn't till the end of his career really didn't start really getting there. And he said it probably had a negative effect on his family, you know, his marriage, his, you know, things like that. That was like, what humility to recognize that perspective and to be able to see that the game does have an effect on you at times, especially, you know, when you're allowing the ups and downs to affect you in a negative way. But eventually, I think the goal for all of us is to get to that place where we can be consistent, as good as we can be, while you're still experiencing the highs and lows of the game.
Yeah, one of the things he mentioned was impact, you know, and you know, his faith is a huge piece of his life, and you know, wants to have an impact on people around him. And you know, he said one of the things that, I can't remember exactly how he put it, but one of the things that he doesn't like is that people think that they have to be performing at a certain level in order to have an impact on people around them. Yeah. And his statement was he couldn't disagree with that anymore. I could relate with that as a player and as, you know, as a coach. I see this. You know, I see this all the time, you know, with players, and somebody who's not in the game, maybe not a starter, can have a huge impact on the culture of a team, the attitude of a team, you know, just the effort level. There's so many ways that you can have an impact on a team and off the field as well. Your performance on the field does not equal your impact on the team.
Well, at that time, he was struggling, and he was my locker mate, you know, and I'm sitting there like, this guy's not doing that great. But he came to the field every day pointing outward, you know, and some of the biggest things I ever learned in my life, I avoided pitfalls because of the stuff he had learned. The stuff he was sharing with me, being very open with me and honest with me, helped me on and off the field, you know. And if a guy's not transparent like that, I would be further behind, yeah, you know, experience-wise than I am right now. But I think he kind of helped that along very quickly, and it had nothing to do with what he was doing on the field. You
know what the cool thing about that is, too, is he, you know, as he was talking about Brantley, and the impact he had on him as a young player in the big leagues, and then the impact that he had on you, there's this idea of paying it forward, you know, that he was already doing, and that you've kind of caught at this time, and what we're trying to kind of do with this podcast as well. And I love that. You know, I think that's such a huge lesson to learn. If you can learn that early on in your life, the importance of not only being humble enough to learn from, find somebody near you who is doing it well, and watch that guy and learn from that guy, and then also try to give that to somebody else that's near you as well at some point in your career. Or
who are some guys that, you know, as a young player were that for you, the Jeff Brantley for you?
Oh, man, you know, the first guy when I got to the big leagues that made an impact on me was a guy named Ty Wigington. Ty was a great player, was an all-star with the Orioles, I believe, after he had left Tampa Bay. But early on, when I was struggling, he was the one guy that reached out to me and said, you know, he did things the right way. He went about it the right way. He was a gamer. He was kind of a hard-nosed kind of guy, old school in a way. But when he saw me struggling, instead of like kind of looking the other way or kind of looking down on me like, yeah, young kid doesn't really know what he's doing, he came to me and said, hey, I know you're struggling. He's like, you're going to be just fine. You know, just, and he tried to lay some things out for me to help me, you know, relax in the moment and just calm down and be able to play the game the way I knew how. And you know what? Sometimes that's all it takes. You don't have to have all the wisdom in the world. It might just be reaching out when you know a guy's struggling. Mm-hmm. And if you go about things the right way, which he did for me at the time, I mean, I looked up to him. From then on, it was like, man, I really look up to that guy. And when I saw him later on in my career and I was doing well and he was doing well, it was easy for me to root for him on the other side even when I was playing against him. So guys like that. And also he was a big-time family man. I watched the way he went about his wife and kids and just kind of caring for them and bringing them on the road and things like that, that it just mattered to me watching the way he went about things. And, you know, he's not the guy that everybody's going to be like, oh, wow, you were mentored by Derek Jeter. You know, no.
Well, that's kind of the point, right?
Exactly.
Like
that's
the point
matter.
that he made was
you don't have to be
Jeter.
You don't have to be the MVP on the field.
Yeah.
And I would say a lot of times, you know, that guy's tied up in so much stuff going on, with whether it's media and all that stuff, that sometimes it takes a guy outside of the limelight to really shed some light on what's going on. And you know, for Ty to come over and start talking to you about stuff, it means those type of mentor roles, the people that I've seen in my career, the guys like Dickey, and Dickey's talking about Brantley, they pay attention
Yeah.
to not just themselves. They're paying attention to the guy next to them in the locker. They're paying attention to guys on the field so that when that moment comes, they have that encouraging word.
Yeah.
And that takes effort. That takes effort. And that's what brings me to what, to me, probably the most powerful line that I thought.
Yeah, let's hear this.
That came out of the interview. And in that moment, I was just kind of like, this is the coolest thing I've ever. He said he wanted to live the next 5 minutes well with the people he was with.
That's gold, man.
Dude, that just I don't know
in
if
the
I,
moment.
Oh my goodness! Like, and I think that adding on with the people that you're with is great because a lot of times you're like, oh, I'm going to live the next 5 minutes well. Hey, if I'm by myself in front of my computer, I can just sit there and I'll type, write an article or hey, I'm going to tweet something. In 5 minutes is like, not a big deal. No, the people that you're with.
Yeah.
The people that are around you, that's awareness of what's going on. That's feel, right? We talk about feel all the time.
That's so hard, though. That's easier said than done, isn't it? I mean, RA is, what is he? He said he's 44, right?
44.
21 years in professional baseball.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
And I'm sure he would say he's still learning how to do that, and as all of us are, and that's a process, man. I mean, it's so easy to say that. It's a little bit cliche to live in the present or do that. But, man, it's really, really hard. You have to know yourself really well. You have to know your tendencies really well to be able to do that.
One thing that I got that he was talking about stuff, and he's in retirement, right? Like he's living his life. Like he's training for just himself, for health purposes, He's not training for a season. And, what he's doing is he's applying all the lessons that he learned in baseball to his everyday life.
Yeah. I like the baseball as family analogy as well.
Yeah.
That you guys talked about. That's for most guys is when you're around that many, those guys all the time. And if you get a chance to do that for years upon end, like those are people that you're really, really close to, and like you said in the interview, you're spending the only amount of time that's even near that is the amount of time you're spending with your actual family.
Yeah.
So you get to know people really, really well, really quickly. And I know that that's the word that you use with your team as well, Coach. It's like family. Considering there's going to be some days where guys are going to be upset at each other, and there's going to be some days where everybody's really nice to each other.
That's part of the experience,
and that's what he brought up,
and that's loving each other. Really, like when things aren't going well, when you see somebody cutting a corner, when you see somebody not doing their job, the worst thing you can do is just let that happen without addressing it. Tough love. You got to kick somebody in the pants sometimes, and other times you got to do what Ty Wigington did for you, put your arm around him, tell him it's going to be okay. That's all part of the experience. That's just, it's such a parallel to what happens in a traditional family, I think.
Yeah, and he addressed that too. He was like, you're going to come into the clubhouse. He was talking about his family, and he's like, you're going to have the guy that doesn't care about what's going on in your life, and you're going to have a guy that does care, and that's the dysfunction of a real family. And that's what it is. Baseball is the melting pot of pretty much any experience that you're going to have in life, just concentrated down to 25 or 30 people. And, including showering. So, and so, you do get to know people. Maybe not.
That's funny.
Maybe not.
Well, the majority of people listening to this aren't going to be professionals. They're not going to play in the big leagues. But that's really not the point. The relationships that you make in summer ball and little league, in high school ball, travel ball, the college ball, those things are so valuable. Those relationships last a lifetime. And I just had a guy come and speak to our team and it was a little bit more about the mental game. And he made a statement that parallels what RA said. And he said, in the life that we live here on earth, relationships are the most important thing. They're more important than what you do. They're more important it's just the most important thing. We're created as human beings. We're wired for relationships, and to connect with people. And that's why it's so valuable as a baseball player to really value those relationships and what happens on the bus and in the hotels and in the locker room and just the connections that you make with people, because that parallels life. That the way that you connect with people on a baseball team is really a valuable tool that you can carry over to everyday life outside of the game as well.
I know it's hard for young players to remember this and think about this perspective, but think about this. 50 years from now, who is going to remember what your batting average was or how many runs you scored or whether even you were MVP of the league? no one's going to care. They're going to have moved so far on at that point, it's not going to matter. What people are going to remember is the impact that you had on their life. Whether you put your arm around them,
the way you made them feel.
Exactly.
You remember the way Ty Wigington made you feel.
Exactly.
As a rookie.
I don't know what he hit that year. I don't even know what I hit that year. It was low. I know that. but yeah, that's the thing, is it makes such a huge impact.
Yeah.
When you go out of your way to really have a relationship with somebody else on your team.
And it goes a long way, because you can tell when people try to fake it. You know, it's
yeah.
When you find that authenticity, that's what we're talking about now. I mean, me and Dickey hadn't been teammates in over 11 years now.
But that could have been yesterday, right? That conversation was like no time had passed, right?
I wish I could have shared the entire interview. We were telling stories and bringing up names, and it was pretty amazing. We were just remembering stuff on the spot, and that's I don't know. It was just a blessing for me just to hang out with him. It was an excuse, and luckily I got to record it so everybody could hear it. But I mean, he's just, I don't know. He's very intense with his relationships. He wants to be involved. He wants to know what's going on in your life. And if there is a way that he can help, great. If not, then maybe share some wisdom. And I don't know, just connecting in that way. I mean, I'm still talking about it this many years later. And there's not one season that's gone by since that I haven't used him in some form of an analogy or a story. I don't think I could ever find a better teammate. And I do have maybe 10 more years playing. No shot. Maybe.
How old are you?
35.
How old is RA?
He's 44. So
yeah. You got 10 more.
Phil Necro pitched his last complete game shutout at 46.
You need to get some acrylic nails, though, I think.
Yeah.
That's the only way you could do it.
Okay, so you touched on something there I want to talk about.
Do it.
Humor.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when he said, like, the humor in baseball is it's unmistakable. You can't find it anywhere else, you know, just the characters, the stories, just the random stuff that happens behind the scenes.
It's true.
Tell me a story, Tim.
It's true, all of it. So
I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah, one thing we didn't even touch on was we were playing in Omaha, but we stay in Council Bluffs, Iowa, at a casino/hotel. This was in 2007, AAA. And one day he just tells a bunch of guys, like, I'm going to go swim this river, right? So casinos are on the river. Like, river. I mean, he was just wearing shorts and a T-shirt, and he's like, I'm going to swim this thing. I had known him long enough to be like, he may be able to do it, but maybe he won't. He literally just walked up to the edge and just jumped in. And what you don't know about rivers, if you're up close, you don't really know how fast they are. So when he jumped in, he was like immediately out of sight. He was just down the river.
My God.
Yeah, a couple of guys jumped in a car that had a car and drove down. Grant Balfour, Australian dude.
Yes,
you played with
I
Grant,
played
right?
with Grant.
Yeah, so Balfour jumped in a car. I think maybe Lance Nix was another guy, an outfielder. And they jumped in a car and drove and had to go like miles down, you know, next to the river. And they ended up having to pull him out. And Dickey told the story later. He got about halfway out and he was like, I'm exhausted, you know, I'm not going to make it. And, you know, so he's fighting this current and he's just like making peace with God. And next thing you know, he starts heading back to shore and Balfour just reaches in there and pulls him out. It's just amazing. Like, I've never done that. I'm afraid of water now.
That's a really bad idea.
Yeah.
What was he thinking?
I don't know, but he
was in AAA with a 7 ERA. That's what he was thinking.
I don't know. That water was disgusting. It's like orange.
That's so gross.
But what's amazing about it? Not that the teammates, you know, saved him and all that. I don't know it, but he is a like an athlete, man. He swims and he rock.
Can he really throw a football 60 yards?
He can throw a football 60 yards. I mean, he is. If you ever invented a game, he's better at it than you. He's just that guy. Anyway.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That wasn't really funny at the time.
No, humor. Dangerous.
Yeah, it's super dangerous, but it's funny now.
Yeah, sometimes when you hear him secondhand, you think it's legend, but I mean that's firsthand. You were there.
I was there.
You saw it.
I was there, and I was just like, he's gone. I was like, goodbye.
No, that's hilarious.
Don't ever do that if you're a kid. Don't ever try to swim even a creek or a river. We should probably wrap this up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe just to top it off, the quote where towards the end, you know, talking about humility a little bit, and he said, you know, I'm trying to think how he said it. Think you're the best player on earth, but act like you're the worst.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ego. He was talking about ego.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I thought
Yeah,
that's a lot there, but what a great quote.
Exactly. If you want to win the hearts of your teammates over to you, act like that.
You're the best, act like you're the worst.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Because people will see your confidence, but they will also know that you're humble enough to be able to
great interview, Tim.
recognize you're not the best.
Thank you. My takeaway is twice he talked about he was not a self-made man and that he had lots of people help him along the way. And to me, that's what it's all about. Sometimes you're going to be the guy that needs help, and sometimes you're the guy that's put right in that moment to be the one that does help.
Yeah, that's right. Good stuff.
That's about as serious as I'll get. Well, that does it for this episode of Show and Go. If you have any questions or comments, topics you'd like to hear discussed on future episodes, feel free to interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Show and Go. And make sure to visit our website, theshowandgo.com. And listen, I'm serious. Write us a review on the podcast platform. Just do it. I think iTunes
Get on him, Tim.
Yeah. iTunes has like 5 stars. Like, give us 5, and then comment about there should be a 6 star. Something to that effect. I'd like to thank the boys of the Theocast podcast for letting us use their equipment today and every day until they get a warrant. On behalf of myself, Zoe, the absent seat where usually J Money sits, unbelievable, and Coach, thanks for listening and join us next time on The Show and Go.
I only got audio coming out of 1 ear.
Your thing's broke? 1 ear?
Here, you want to use these?
I mean,
That was good. Great.
Was that
great.
interview,
Yeah, it was good comment.
I'm editing
may
out
have
a
to
lot
edit
of what
some
I
of that
say.
because-